Hello, this is Sarah with Cowlitz River Restoration. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to show you how I whitewashed these two nightstand dressers for a client of mine. They're super sturdy and solid oak. She just wanted something that is a little less 90s and a little more soft and modern to kind of go with the vibe of her room. So I started off by sanding everything down with a 150 grit. I'm not pushing super hard. I just want to push enough to get that initial finish off because I'm going to go over it again with a 220 grit to really smooth it out, make sure that there's no squiggly lines from my sandpaper. But also, if I'm not pushing crazy hard, that should help to eliminate any squiggly lines. Also you can turn the orbital sander down a little bit, which will also help with the squiggly lines. But I didn't have any issue with the squiggly lines. Plus, with me going over it with a whitewash, it pretty much hides anything like that anyways, so no problem. But I do need to get down to the bare wood so that my whitewash will stick better. As I've noticed that when I try to whitewash over wood that has not been taken down to bare wood, it doesn't adhere as well. Looking for the right words to use anyways. But again, 150 grit all over, orbital sander, medium pressure. That's what you do. In the corners where I couldn't get my orbital sander to reach, I just went ahead and used a piece of sandpaper and hand sanded those areas. I do have a corner sander, but the areas that I couldn't get to were really small, so it just seemed faster to go ahead and just use that sandpaper, sand it by hand real quick. And that did the trick. Earlier, when I was fumbling with my words, part of the reason I really like to get down to that bare wood is because if you go ahead and try to whitewash over the finish, it's so slick that the whitewash doesn't really soak into it at all, and it'll just wipe right back off of the previous finish. So we have to get that initial finish off so that it's not so slick, so that the whitewash will actually soak in a little bit and stay or stick to the wood. I'm done with my 150 grit, and now I'm going over the whole thing with a 220 grit just to make sure it's really good and smooth. I also have all those drawers to sand. Around the edges of the drawers, they have kind of a rounded edge. So I basically just try to mimic that with my sander. I don't want to take the edge off, so I have to just lightly sand over that rounded edge and just kind of meet it where it's at. You know, like there's a lot of, I have to round the edge with my sander. And I don't know how to explain to you exactly how it's done, but you can kind of see how I gently, very gently go around that rounded edge so that it can still continue to keep that rounded shape while also taking that finish off so that I have a good and smooth and even finish with my whitewash. I did the same exact thing that I did with the rest of the nightstand or dressers or whatever you want to call them. Tiny dressers, tiny nightstands, drawered nightstands, I don't know. And 150, then 220. Of course, after all that sanding, there's a lot of dust. So I went through and I vacuumed everything out, both nightstands, all the drawers, and then I'm gonna wipe them down with a wet rag to pick up all of that dust and all of that debris in order to have a nice clean surface for me to do my next step, which is going to be whitewashing. I wanted to be sure that I had the same mixture every time I did my whitewash. So I used a dry erase pen to mark on the cup where or how full I filled it with my paint, which is Drop Cloth by Dixie Belle, and how full I filled it also with water because it's a whitewash. So what I started off with was half paint, half water. So 1 part paint, 1 part water in equal parts. And I went over and I started to do that. However, the consistency was way too thick. The moment I put it on there, I could tell by looking at it that it was way too thick. So I started trying to wipe it off pretty aggressively, and it was not coming off the way I needed it to. So I ran out of there and I put more water in it. So it's actually 2 parts water to 1 part paint. And that was the perfect consistency. And I kept that mark on my cup in order so that if I needed to refill, I know exactly how much to put in so that the next time I will have the exact same mixture. And it was the perfect mixture. I use it every time I whitewash now. That's my mixture, 2 to 1, 2 parts water, 1 part paint. That is the perfect mixture for me when I'm doing a whitewash. When I did the first part of it and it was a little too thick, I did have to go back and do a little bit of damage control, and basically just meaning I'm gonna go over it with like a wet washcloth and try to wipe it all down in order to dilute that a little bit, because it went on a little bit darker than what the rest of it did because my mixture was different with that part. Hence the fact that I want to be sure that I am getting the same mixture every time, which is why I marked it on the cup. So, and also as you can see, what I did was I just go through and I paint the entire top with that whitewash solution that I made, and then I just wipe it all off with a clean rag. But you can see by looking at it that the part that I did in the beginning is a little bit darker because it was a different solution, and then I'm just going to play with it and try to lighten it up by adding some of my new whitewash. I'm going to take water and just aggressively wipe at it to try to lighten it up, then go over it again with that solution, trying to get a nice even finish. And I did accomplish that, and I'm happy with how it turned out. I'm going to continue that technique all the way through the base of this nightstand and also onto the drawers. Same technique. I'm going to use that whitewashing solution where I'm just going to paint it on, going in the same direction as the wood grain, and then take that clean rag and then I'm going to wipe it off. Brush that I'm using for this is a Woodster angle brush, but really you can use just about any brush you want. I mean, honestly, even if you wanted to, you could dip a rag into it, wipe it on, and then use another rag to wipe it off. The whole point is just to get the product on there and then wipe it off. I'm white washing. Wax on, wax on, wax on, wax on, wax on, wax off. Put it on, take it off. That easy. If you don't know, water or moisture can sometimes make wood rise a little bit. So the faces of the drawers, they had a little bit of a gritty feel to them, and so did the top of the nightstand. So what I did is I just took a 220 grit and sanded it very lightly to smooth it out, wiped it down again, and then I clear waxed it with Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax. And I just used a wax brush and waxed it all from bottom to top, everywhere that I whitewashed, and I like to keep it in the same direction as the wood grain. I also, after I was done brushing it with the wax, I used a paper towel to kind of just go over the areas that I waxed and kind of buff them out and to like remove any excess wax that was on the surface. Remember that when you're using wax, a little goes a long way. You only need a light coat. So I'm really just dipping the bristles in enough just to get a really light coat on the top. If you put too much, it can take forever to cure. And I mean, you should be able to just touch and feel the smoothness of it. And that's what I did. Light amount, worked through. You basically, you're like massaging the wax into the wood to condition it and also to seal in that whitewash. It does change the finish a little bit when you apply the wax. I think what it does is it helps to bring out that wood grain a little bit, and I am very pleased with how this finish turned out. Waxing. So next what I did is I used this Orange Grove wood conditioning oil by Dixie Belle, and I conditioned the sides and the insides of all of the drawers just so that they had a fresh smell. It's called Orange Grove and it smells delightful, and it conditions that wood and makes it look pretty again and new. So that's what I did. To apply that product, I'm just using a scrap of old fabric that I cut off of a t-shirt. I like to reuse things around here, so that is what that is. It is an old t-shirt that was worn out, or that we outgrew, and I cut it up and used it to apply that oil. This is how they turned out. I also refinished a dresser that matches it completely. She sent pictures of it in her space and it looks really cute, and I'm so happy with it. It's got a really sweet, light, soft vibe now. I'm so glad that you guys stuck with me through this tutorial. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you can be in the know as I post new content. Thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you next time with Cowlitz River Restoration. Bye.